After 10 years of hustling with Olivia, we finally made it from a crappy apartment to a luxury condo. But then she stumbled upon a system that could turn back time, all the way back to the summer her old crush was still alive. So she threw away our multi-million-dollar fortune without a second thought and hit confirm. And just like that, I was dragged back to high school with her. I immediately told her we were breaking up, but she didn't get it. It's not a big deal. We'll just start over. Why are you being so dramatic? I'm serious, I said. That just made her angry. After saving her crush, she applied to the same college as him. Everyone said she was just trying to get back at me, that she wanted me to come crawling back. But I ignored them because I knew something she didn't. The time travel was temporary, and if you changed one little thing, the future would change with it. 7 days later, we were back in the future, 10 years on. But this time, Olivia was in for a shock. After the college entrance exam scores came out, the school held a workshop on picking a major. Being back on campus felt like stepping into another life. Next to me, Olivia fanned herself with her hand, complaining, 1 minute it's winter, the next it's summer. It's hard to get used to. I was quiet for a moment, then said flatly we should break up. Hearing this, Olivia froze. She clearly hadn't expected the first thing I'd do, after 10 years together, was dump her the moment we were back in high school. When the shock wore off, her brow furrowed. Leo, what did you just say? I turned to face her, looking at a face that was suddenly 10 years younger, and summoned every ounce of patience I had. I said, we're breaking up. Seeing the seriousness in my eyes, Olivia's movements faltered. Confusion filled her face. What are you trying to pull now? We're back in high school, 10 years younger. Aren't you happy? Happy? I forced a bitter laugh, then finally exploded. Olivia, are you out of your mind? Why would you want to go back to high school? We worked our asses off for so many years to finally make it. Have you forgotten all the suffering we went through? I seriously wanted to pry her head open to see what was inside. Had a zombie eaten her brain or something? Who in their right mind gives up the success they bled for to go back to having nothing? I was so angry I could barely control myself, but Olivia just looked stunned for a second before shrugging it off. I haven't forgotten, she said lightly. But I had you with me the whole time, didn't I? She paused, a shadow of sadness and a flicker of hope in her eyes. I just wanted to save Ethan. He didn't deserve to die that summer. I knew who Ethan was. He sat in front of Olivia in class. He'd aced his college exams, but his family refused to let him go to university. He never even got to submit his applications. In his despair, he jumped from a building and died that summer. He had a tragic story, no doubt. I wasn't denying that, but I barely knew the guy. Why should I have to pay for someone else's life with the years of hard work I put in? Seeing my silence, Olivia's patience ran out. She almost sounded amused. It's not a big deal. We'll just start over. Why are you being so dramatic? I took a deep breath. When I spoke again, my voice was ice cold. I'm serious. Her face changed, but before she could say anything, a clear male voice called out from behind us. Olivia, the workshop's about to start. We're going to be late. We both turned. A handsome guy with a bright, open smile met our eyes. A light breeze rustled his hair, and the small dimples on his face were charming. Olivia almost instinctively took 2 steps toward him, but then she remembered me and turned back, lowering her voice. You're a grown man, not an actual 18-year-old. Stop throwing a tantrum. Just calm down and go to the workshop. With that, she hurried over to Ethan. The composed, mature woman I knew was suddenly acting like a shy, flustered teenager as she walked beside him toward the auditorium. I was left standing there alone. I didn't go to the workshop. I turned around and went home. But sitting on the bus, tears started to fall, and I couldn't stop them. 10 years. An entire decade of effort gone. Just like that, we were back to square one. A wave of despair threatened to swallow me whole, dragging my memories back with it. Olivia and I had known each other since we were kids. Her family lived right next door. When we were little, my parents fought about money all the time. So did hers. Whenever the fighting got too bad, we'd sneak out and sit in the park, eating popsicles. We'd stay there all afternoon, and then just look at each other with silly grins. We had so much in common that it was almost inevitable we'd come to rely on each other. After high school, we went to the same college, worked part-time jobs together, and at the right time, we just fell into a relationship without ever having to say the words. After graduation, we got married. We were struggling to make it in the big city and money was tight, so we skipped the wedding and just signed the papers. During the hardest year, we were crammed into a leaky apartment, dreaming about the future. She'd rest her head on my arm, a smile on her face. When we're rich, we're going to have such a good life. Just then, a drop of water landed with a plink, as if mocking our naive dreams. I couldn't help but laugh. Yeah, well, I'm going to have a huge mansion. She laughed too. Deal. But starting a company wasn't easy. To land one contract, I ran all over the city under the scorching sun, getting heat stroke and even ending up in the hospital from drinking too much with clients. But we pushed through it all. We made it. We were worth tens of millions. I thought it was the beginning of our happy life, but one night, this system found Olivia. It told her she could turn back time, go to any point in the past, and change it. A blue screen floated in front of us. At first, Olivia didn't believe it, but the system's sudden appearance was shocking enough. I felt something was off. I didn't want to go back. I frowned and tried to talk her out of it. Don't fall for this nonsense. But I never expected this. Olivia, who had always been so rational, hit confirm without a second's hesitation. In an instant, a white light flashed. Just before I passed out, I heard her whisper, "If I go back, does that mean I can save him?" In that moment, my mind went blank. We had been in love for years, but had there always been someone else in her heart? Someone she was willing to give up a multi-million-dollar fortune for, just for a chance to go back and save him. What a great love story. I suddenly found it all ridiculous, but I couldn't even manage a laugh. Just then, an electronic voice sounded in my head. "Congratulations, host, on returning to the past. This is limited to 7 days. If no causal links are changed, you will return to the original future in 10 years. If changes are made, the future will also change." Note: when time travel involves more than two people, only one will retain their memories, chosen at random by the system. I froze. So I could go back? I turned around and headed back to the school. It was a 10-year relationship, after all. You can't just let go of that in an instant. When I found Olivia, she was just coming out of the workshop, a faint smile on her lips as she chatted with Ethan. When she saw me, her gaze faltered. She was probably still mad about me yelling at her earlier. She turned her head away, pretending not to see me, and just said, "Let's go fill out our college applications." The us in that sentence meant her and Ethan. Ethan scratched his head, a little embarrassed. "Is it okay for me to go to your house?" Olivia smiled casually. "What's not okay about it? My parents aren't home." "Well, okay then." "Olivia." I said her name. Olivia stopped. I glanced at the still-living Ethan and felt a strange pang of guilt. But Ethan didn't notice my expression. He looked at Olivia and asked quietly, "Is he a friend of yours?" We weren't in the same class. I only knew him by sight. At his question, Olivia glanced at me and said coolly, "Yeah, we're neighbors." Neighbors. I was stunned. An undeniable bitterness rose in my throat, and the words I wanted to say got stuck. It was a scorching summer day, but I felt like I couldn't feel the heat at all. Olivia was the one to speak up. "Let's go. It's too hot out here." "Okay." Ethan waved at me. "See you later, then." Olivia didn't look back. She thoughtfully called a cab for him. She used to always tell me it's fine to take the crowded bus. "I'll ride it with you." At the time, I just thought she was being frugal. Turns out, she could be considerate and dote on someone after all. The system's words echoed in my head, but I didn't chase after them. I went home alone. There were 3 days left until the college application deadline. In my original timeline, to avoid a long-distance relationship, I applied to a local university with Olivia. But later, after my career took off and I traveled to so many places, I secretly regretted not going to a better school. Now that I had a do-over, I could choose a new path for myself. With that thought, my anger finally started to subside. For the next 3 days, I didn't leave the house. Not until the day the application deadline closed. My best friend, Jake, asked me to hang out. I hadn't seen his younger self in a long time, so I gladly accepted. We went to see the biggest blockbuster of the year. But unexpectedly, we ran into Olivia at the movie theater. Olivia was holding 2 tickets. Our eyes met suddenly. She froze for a second, a flash of panic in her eyes, but she quickly composed herself and walked toward me. Don't get the wrong idea. Ethan's never seen a movie in a theater before, so I just wanted to bring him. I nodded calmly. Okay. My detached attitude seemed to annoy her. She stared at me for a couple of seconds, then lowered her voice, a new edge to it. Still mad? We have all our experience from the last life. We can get successful again even faster, right? Why are you making such a big deal out of this? It wasn't just about that. I looked up and said quietly, what if I told you that if you don't change anything, we can go straight back? Then we would still be husband and wife. I said it seriously, but Olivia dismissed it. Don't be ridiculous. We're already back. Besides, could you really stand by and let someone die? I never realized you were so cold-blooded. She had a point. I nodded. Okay then, do whatever you want. Fine, you make your changes, I'll make mine. We'll see what things look like in 7 days when we're back in the future. It was just a moment, not really a hardship. But Olivia's face turned cold. Do you have to talk to me like that? I was about to argue when Ethan came back from the restroom. The second Olivia saw him, she turned and walked toward him without a backward glance. Jake came back with the popcorn and saw their retreating figures from a distance. He looked surprised. Isn't Olivia your girlfriend? Why is she with Ethan? She's not anymore. Not now and not in the future, I said, looking down. The moment the words left my mouth, the person walking ahead of us froze. But she didn't turn around. I didn't care. I settled in with Jake to enjoy the movie I had missed out on all those years ago. As the movie neared its end, I suddenly remembered that Jake, because of his bad grades, had skipped college and gone straight to work. In the end, his business failed, he was saddled with massive debt. His wife cheated on him, and he developed severe depression. Right before he killed himself, he gave me a call. On the other end of the line, he gave a bitter laugh, sounding confused. Leo, is a degree really that important? I was busy with work and answered without thinking. It helps. He didn't seem to mind my curt reply. After a pause, he continued, I wish I had retaken the year and tried for college. I sensed something was wrong. But by the time I dropped everything and rushed back to our hometown to find him, people told me he was already dead. He was only 27. Thinking of this, I couldn't help but glance at the vibrant, youthful Jake beside me. The teenager had a neat, short haircut and was staring intently at the movie screen. Even failing his exams hadn't cast much of a shadow over him. The light from the screen reflected in his eyes, bright and full of life. Jake, I spoke softly. Huh? He heard me and turned his head. I looked at him, made my decision, and, suppressing a wave of emotion, said, college is great. Have you thought about studying for another year to retake the exams? We could still be together then. I remembered it clearly. He had a real talent for design. He shouldn't be trapped in this small town. Jake paused, then scratched his head. But I'm not really cut out for studying, no problem. I'll tutor you online. I pulled out my old corporate playbook, laying out a detailed plan for his future and selling him on the dream. His eyes, full of a clear, earnest trust, lit up. He was convinced. Okay, I'll give it a shot. I nodded, satisfied. Good. By the time the nearly 3-hour movie was over, it was already dark. Walking out of the theater with the crowd, Olivia was oddly distracted. Olivia, what are you thinking about? Ethan asked with concern after she didn't respond to him twice. The sound of his voice snapped her back to reality. Her eyes instinctively scanned the crowd. It was packed, but she couldn't see the familiar figure she was looking for. Maybe Leo saw a different movie, she thought. It's nothing, she said out loud. Ethan smiled, his handsome face blushing slightly as if he'd just thought of something. Well, you treated me to a movie, so let me treat you to some takeout. Olivia's brow furrowed instinctively. She hadn't eaten that kind of cheap food in a long time and had no desire to. She was about to refuse when she thought of Leo's deliberately distant attitude, and a fire of irritation flared up in her. It was just starting over. Did he really have to be so dramatic about it? Meeting Ethan's expectant gaze, she nodded. Sure. The boy was clearly thrilled. His fingertips unconsciously clenched the hem of his shirt. After a few steps, he said, trying to sound casual, Olivia, when school starts, let's go together. Previously, Olivia had applied to a good local university, but this time around, when filling out her applications, she figured it wouldn't hurt to see a different campus and casually applied to the same college as Ethan. After all, she had her experience from the last lifetime. Speaking of which, she glanced at her phone, feeling an inexplicable anxiety. Still no message from Leo. Wasn't he even going to ask what school she applied to? Or did he just apply to the local school again? The thought made most of her anger dissipate, but she still said, okay, but we'll have to bring someone else along. Your neighbor? The guy? Ethan asked. Olivia hesitated for a moment, then said casually, yeah. She hadn't completely forgiven him yet. He could stew in his own juices for a while before she told people they were together again. That night, I heard that Olivia had applied to the same university as Ethan. Before, I would have confronted her about it, but now I didn't care. I hadn't applied to a local university anyway. What I didn't expect, though, was a call from Olivia just as I was getting ready for bed. Leo, I posted the university I was applying to on my social feed. Did you see it? Her tone wasn't great, but it was an olive branch. I was half asleep and mumbled, yeah, I saw it. But I had no intention of applying to the same school. Hearing my response, the person on the other end of the line seemed to breathe a sigh of relief, muttering, so we'll still be at the same university, just like before. Even if we do go back after 7 days, we'll still be husband and wife. Her mumbling was annoying. I hung up the phone, rolled over, and went back to sleep. The next few days passed quickly. Worried about future complications, I made a detailed plan for my current self. On the 7th day, as I was organizing my old high school notes, the system appeared. A cold, electronic voice suddenly rang in my ear. Time is up. The return channel is now open. My fingers paused. A draft blew through the room, rustling the pages of my thick notebooks. The pages, which should have been yellowed with age, were still nearly new in the summer of 10 years ago. The next moment, a blinding white light flashed before my eyes. My heart began to pound uncontrollably. What would this uncertain future look like? Meanwhile, next door, Olivia was leaning back on a worn-out red leather sofa, fiddling with a laggy phone. Her brow furrowed as she refreshed the screen over and over. But the chat history remained stuck from several days ago. Was the signal bad? Or was the network unstable? She habitually blamed the internet and shook her phone in frustration. But even when the page refreshed successfully, no new messages came in. Before, Leo would have sent her tons of messages. Simple, everyday things. He'd ask if she'd eaten. He'd ask what she was doing. But now the chat window was empty. A flicker of panic rose in her heart, but she quickly suppressed it. To be honest, now that she'd calmed down, she was having trouble adjusting too. After they got rich, they had only used the best of everything. Now she was back to living in a dilapidated little house. She had to check her balance before buying anything. A single cab ride had cost her a whole day's worth of food money. It was understandable that Leo would be angry, but he was really holding a grudge. Olivia rubbed her forehead in frustration. After a while, she stood up, ready to go find Leo. But before she could take more than a few steps, a familiar white light flashed before her eyes. When the light faded, and she saw the scene in front of her, the woman's gaze froze. 10 years can change a city dramatically. The once low buildings had been replaced by towering skyscrapers. Olivia stared at the massive, high-definition screen in the city center, first in shock, then in delight. She was back? Wait, what about Ethan? She pulled out her phone and quickly scrolled through her contacts. Soon, she found a familiar name. She clicked on Ethan's social media feed. There were recent photos of him, wearing a cool leather jacket and riding a motorcycle. Compared to his shy, 10 years younger self, Ethan looked much more mature. She had really changed the past. But soon, Olivia realized something was wrong. Why wasn't her phone the latest model? And her clothes, she looked down, they weren't designer brands. A strange feeling spread from the bottom of her heart. She pushed down her unease and hailed a cab straight to the mansion where she used to live. Someone was home. Olivia's heart settled a little. Of course, this was still right. As long as she found Leo, everything would get back on track. She knocked on the door. Took a while for someone to answer. It was winter and the southern climate was damp and cold. A gust of wind cut through her, chilling her to the bone. Olivia shivered, calling out impatiently, "Leo, are you?" Her words died in her throat. A middle-aged woman had opened the door and was looking at her with confusion. "Who are you looking for?" Olivia's pupils contracted, and her throat felt tight. How could this be? After being escorted out of the villa by security, whom the woman had called, Olivia stood dazed on the asphalt road, completely stunned. How was this possible? Hadn't she returned to 10 years in the future? Why wasn't the mansion hers anymore? And where was Leo? Right? Leo! She fumbled for her phone, her frozen fingers scrolling frantically through her contacts, desperate to find his name. But after looking through everyone, she couldn't find him. She couldn't remember his phone number either. Cursing under her breath, she hailed another cab and went to their company. This time it was as she expected. The company existed, but there were only a handful of people inside, and the scale was completely different. An employee noticed her and gave a perfunctory greeting. "Ms. White, where's Leo?" She barely recognized anyone on the staff. But she couldn't worry about that now. She suppressed her emotions and asked. She remembered that at this point, she and Leo were working hard at the company together. Leo was her vice president. He should have been at the office. Could he be out meeting clients? Before the thought could even settle, the person in front of her gave her a strange look. "Leo? Who's that? We don't have anyone by that name here." It was like a lightning bolt had struck Olivia. For a moment, her heart seemed to stop. It had changed. Everything had changed. Realizing this, Olivia forced herself to calm down. After leaving the office, she started calling old classmates one by one, asking about Leo. Someone knew. They told her casually, "Oh, Leo? I think he and his best friend went to New York City. I hear their business is doing pretty well now." Olivia's fingers tightened around her phone until her knuckles turned white. She suddenly remembered what Leo had told her. If she didn't change anything, they could go back to their old future. But she had changed things. Was this the butterfly effect? But they had been together for over 10 years. Those memories of a decade of love couldn't be fake. How could he really just leave her? Swallowing hard, she fought down the intense unease in her heart. After hanging up, she started frantically scrolling through her phone. The university she had graduated from was the one she'd chosen with Ethan. She had a company, but there were only a few people in the group chat. She had no idea what her life had been like for the past 10 years. Why hadn't she become the CEO of a publicly traded company like in her previous life? She should have had more experience. She had to go ask Leo. When the front desk buzzed up to tell me someone claiming to be my girlfriend was here to see me, I was having lunch with Jake. Hearing this, Jake froze, his eyes wide. "Bro, when did you get a girlfriend behind my back?" I was just as confused. "I don't have one." "Really?" Jake clearly didn't believe me. He put down his chopsticks and started grilling me. "Is it the cat-eyed girl?" He was talking about the college student next door, who had these incredibly clear, cat-like eyes. I shook my head. "Then is it the Chanel lady?" A rich heiress who was pursuing me loved sending me Chanel gifts. I shook my head again. "Then who?" He rattled off a whole list of names, and my face darkened. I was busy as hell. I barely knew most of those people. Seeing me deny everything, Jake grinned, stood up, and abandoned his lunch. "Well, I've got to see who's trying to claim our CEO." I was curious too, so I told the front desk to let her up. Soon, a beautiful young woman was standing before us. I recognized her in an instant. It was my childhood friend, Olivia. Seeing me, she was clearly agitated. She strode over and grabbed my shoulders. "Leo, what the hell is going on? What happened to our home?" I had no idea what she was talking about. Beside me, Jake squinted. Then recognition dawned. Well, look who it is. If it isn't the childhood sweetheart from 100 years ago. Olivia ignored Jake's sarcastic remark, her bloodshot eyes fixed on me. I pushed her hands off and took a step back, frowning. Olivia, what are you talking about? We broke up 10 years ago. The moment the words left my mouth, the color drained from her face. Meeting my unfamiliar gaze, Olivia's eyes trembled violently, and her lips quivered as she repeated, broke up 10 years ago? I didn't say anything, but Jake piped up, hey, weren't you getting pretty close with Ethan back then? What, you two didn't end up together? I listened calmly, showing no reaction. Hearing this, Olivia seemed to snap back to reality. Her expression relaxed, and she explained, are you still holding a grudge? It was only for 7 days. There was nothing between me and Ethan. A grudge? 7 days? I couldn't understand why Olivia would show up after 10 years and start spouting a bunch of nonsense. But I had heard from a classmate that, after graduating from college, Olivia had gone to LA to start a business. But it hadn't gone well. She wasn't professional enough, and few companies were willing to work with her. An ex-girlfriend showing up out of the blue. Was she here to borrow money? My expression grew complicated. Just say it. How much do you need to borrow? I cut off her rambling. Caught off guard, Olivia stared at me. What? I was getting exasperated. Olivia, for old time's sake, I can help you out once. But you need to understand, we have nothing to do with each other anymore. Don't come to me for money again. That was probably a little harsh. The woman bristled. Leo, how long are you going to keep up this act? We're married. Before she could finish, a sweet, clear voice interrupted. Sorry to interrupt. Everyone turned. A tall, young college student stood in the doorway. With her broad shoulders and narrow waist, she looked vibrant and beautiful even in a simple t-shirt and pants. Her cat-like eyes were clear and bright. What was Lily doing here? I was taken aback. Ever since I started working, if I didn't eat with Jake, I'd often forget to eat at all, leaving my stomach in knots. But after I met Lily, who lived next door, she started bringing me snacks and food. We got to know each other over time. Seeing the office full of people, Lily wasn't awkward at all. She walked in calmly with a container and said naturally, I brought you some fruit. It's not good for you to never eat any. What time do you get off work today? I bought pork ribs. I can make you sweet and sour ribs. My face felt hot, but I couldn't just brush her off. I mumbled around 6, I guess. Jake was grinning, trying to hide his laughter. Olivia just stared, and it took her a long moment to process what was happening. You cheated on me? She asked in disbelief. The room fell into a dead silence. Even with the thick skin I'd developed over the years, Olivia's question floored me. Was she crazy? What the hell? If I could, I'd go back a few minutes and tell the front desk to throw her out. Lily's brow furrowed slightly, her gaze sizing Olivia up with a critical eye. Jake was stunned for a few seconds, then looked at Olivia like she was insane. Olivia, you and Leo broke up over a decade ago. How is that cheating? Are you dreaming? Olivia glared at Jake. We were married. I even know where all the moles on his body are. Her voice was loud enough for the employees passing by in the hall to start peeking in. My expression froze. A strange pang of sadness welled up inside me, but it was immediately replaced by cold indifference. Olivia, I don't know what kind of game you're playing, but we really did break up a long time ago, and I would never have married you. If you don't believe me, check your own marriage records. Fine, I will. Olivia pulled out her phone. Time ticked by. Her face went from flushed to pale. In the end, she kept refreshing the screen over and over, muttering, It's impossible, it has to be here. I remember we got our license right after we graduated college. We didn't have a wedding then. I had a reasonable suspicion that her business failing had driven her insane. So I decisively called security to have her removed. But it would take a few minutes for them to arrive. Olivia suddenly turned back to me, her eyes red-rimmed. You really forgot everything? What was I supposed to have forgotten? My patience was gone. I haven't forgotten anything. Just as she was about to walk toward me, A tall figure stepped in front of me and slapped her across the face without hesitation. Olivia stumbled and fell to the ground, caught completely off guard. Lily didn't look back. She just shielded me, her voice tense. Be careful. This person might have mental problems. She had a point. I remembered everything perfectly. After high school, I got into my dream university out of state and studied management. During college, I tutored Jake whenever I had free time. In 1 year, I helped him raise his score from the 400s to over 600. He became my underclassman. The year we graduated, I applied for a startup grant, and Jake and I launched a clothing company together. Jake had a real talent for design, so he was in charge of the clothes while I handled marketing. From just a few orders at the beginning, we eventually built our own brand. We grew the business step by step. Sometimes, looking back, Jake would get sentimental. If you hadn't insisted I go to college back then, I'd probably be married with kids back in our hometown right now. I had forgotten why I was so insistent about it, but hearing him say that, I would just smile and reply, the future will be even better. Yeah. Jake's face would relax into a smile, shining with youthful confidence. My trip down memory lane ended there. I didn't feel like I had forgotten anything, and if I had, it must not have been important. Once Olivia was taken away, the office returned to its usual quiet. Jake muttered angrily, seriously, a good ex is a dead ex. I pursed my lips and said nothing. Lily left after dropping off the fruit, without asking any questions. Even though I didn't care about Olivia anymore, my good mood had been ruined. After work, Lily came to pick me up, and she even brought my favorite wisteria flowers. As she handed them to me, the tips of her ears turned red. Seeing this, Jake gave me a knowing wink and whispered, your neighbor girl looks all cool and distant, but she's actually really thoughtful. Couldn't help but smile. All right, I'm heading out. Bye. Jake waved. Lily started the car, and the figures outside the window began to recede. I saw Jake's reflection in the rearview mirror as he turned and went back into the office, and I let out a small sigh. He had zero interest in getting married. He was even more of a workaholic than I was. But that was a good thing. What else do you want to eat tonight? A voice suddenly asked beside me. I turned my head. We were at a red light, and Lily was looking at me. I thought she would ask about Olivia, but I didn't expect her to ask about dinner. Anything's fine, I said casually. Okay, how about stir-fried tomatoes and eggs, sweet and sour pork ribs and loofah soup? MHM. The light turned green. Lily turned her head back and focused on driving. I stared at her profile, my mouth opening and closing, but in the end, I said nothing. Honestly, I hadn't planned on getting too involved with Lily. My parents' failed marriage had left me with a deep distrust of the institution. And the childhood friend I had once relied on so much had also become an ex. I had resigned myself to the idea that I would spend my life married to my career. I had even told Lily that. But Lily hadn't given up. She said feelings could be nurtured over time. If 5 years wasn't enough, she'd take 10. She cooked for me every day and would clean my apartment when I was too lazy. She gently seeped into every corner of my life. Lost in my thoughts, I realized the car had stopped. We're home. Hearing her voice, I snapped out of it and followed her into the elevator. While she was making dinner, my phone buzzed with a friend request. It was Olivia. I hit decline, but she was persistent, sending request after request. Finally, annoyed, I accepted. Her status immediately changed to typing, Leo, there was really nothing between me and Ethan. That again. As if I cared. I replied, what does that have to do with me? Then I blocked her. About half an hour later, Lily's dinner was ready. The aroma wafted out, and I lost interest in my phone. I went to the kitchen and leaned against the doorframe, watching the tall girl in an apron. I smiled and teased, you've got a real wifey vibe going on. Doi. Lily turned around. Beneath her dark hair, her eyes were bright, like a kitten that had just been praised by its owner. I had the sudden urge to pat her head. As if sensing my thought, she tilted her head up slightly, a smile in her eyes. My heart skipped a beat. I reached out and ruffled her hair. Her hair was so soft and felt nice to the touch. Satisfied, I couldn't help but smile as I helped her carry the dishes. let's eat. Okay. After dinner, I curled up on the sofa to watch TV, not really paying attention, just flipping through channels. It was my way of relaxing. Lily came out after washing the dishes and sat down naturally beside me. I waited for a moment, but when she didn't say anything, I asked on an impulse, "Aren't you curious about that woman from today?" Even though what Olivia said was nonsense, she had been so adamant, as if we really had been married and had a history. The person beside me thought for a moment. "I don't know her, but I trust you. Of course, if you want to tell me, I'm willing to listen." I turned my head to look at her and met her serious gaze. After a moment, I chuckled. "I've never been married. That was my childhood friend. We broke up 10 years ago." Okay. Just a single word, but it was filled with trust. I was speechless for a moment. What was I going to do? She was actually pretty great. The kind of great that made you want to tease her. And I did tease her. On the sofa, I pinned Lily beneath me, staring straight into her eyes before lightly biting her lip. I was 28 after all, not some kid. I felt a little awkward, but I was used to being in charge and always wanted to be on top. Her breath hitched, her cheeks flushed, and when she spoke again, her voice was soft. "I want a title. We'll see how you perform." She was only a senior in college, 22, young and beautiful. Soon, she responded with enthusiasm. Our lips and tongues tangled. A glistening thread of saliva connected us. Eventually, I regained control. She was beneath me, her eyes shimmering, but she was firmly in my grasp, with no escape, until we both reached the peak. Lily and I officially started dating. A year later, we got our marriage license. I hadn't wanted a big wedding, but she insisted. For weeks, Lily bustled around, finalizing every detail, even hiring a designer to create her wedding dress. I was exasperated, but it was impossible not to be moved. Jake was my best man. He grinned and said, "Wishing you a lifetime of happiness." I smiled and accepted his blessing, then threw the bouquet to him. Not because I wanted him to get married soon. There are a million roses in the world. I just hoped he would always be himself, as free as the wind, and as passionate as fire. Olivia's story, the message Olivia sent, was met with a red exclamation mark. She stared blankly at the screen, sitting in her rented apartment, lost in thought. Her phone buzzed again. She quickly looked down. It was from Ethan. "Olivia, wanna hang out?" Olivia stared at the message, her memory still stuck in that summer 10 years ago. She had long since sensed that Ethan had a crush on her. To be honest, she wasn't completely indifferent. Before going back in time, she had even thought that if she could do it all over again, she would have dated Ethan. The unattainable first love of her youth had become a lingering regret after she became successful. So when she really did go back, she had a selfish desire to be good to Ethan. But when it came to marriage, she still wanted Leo. She and Leo had grown up together. They were the people each other trusted and relied on the most. Moreover, they had been through so much together. She believed Leo would never leave her. Back then, they were crammed into a tiny apartment with no wedding and no rings. Nothing, just a leaky roof. But Leo would let her rest her head on his arm and dream about the future with him. But she never expected it. Leo's words, "not now and not in the future," they had come true. It turned out the time travel had a limit. They had returned to 10 years later together. But everything had changed. Olivia tried to recall the professional knowledge she had learned back then, but her mind was a complete blank. A sudden panic seized her heart. A terrifying thought exploded in her mind, making her scalp tingle. They had indeed gone back to that time, but it wasn't a rebirth. They had returned as their 10 years older selves to make different decisions for their 10 years younger selves. Her younger self didn't have any so-called experience of success, but her life had been altered by the new decisions. Even if she had started a company just like before, it would have been difficult to succeed. As for her supposed experience, the reason she had reached the peak of success wasn't just her own efforts. It was also Leo's decade of unwavering support, giving her hope the countless times she wanted to give up. Realizing this, she suddenly buried her head in her hands and began to sob painfully. If she could, She wished she could go back to the moment Leo warned her not to trust the system. She would never have chosen to agree.